This video is about sensor wiring. Sensor wiring are the group of wires that go to the hobby charger or the BMS. They tell that device what the individual voltage is in each of these blocks of cells. And that way the charging voltage and the discharge voltage can be monitored. I've gone ahead and assembled this small battery together. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 battery blocks that are hooked together with these through bolts. This makes for a nice strong integral structure even though it's not even tightened yet. So now we're going to go and talk about how to hook up the sensor wires. So I always start with the negative end of the battery. And the negative end, I always, just out of consistency, make it near my left hand, and it's the black terminal. Okay, so I'm going to put an N right here that indicates as the negative terminal of the battery. The negative terminal of the battery has two different wires connected to it. It has the negative terminal of the battery wire, which is the power wire, and it has a negative terminal that goes to the sensor wire. Okay, the power wire is kind of big, the sensor wire is just a little tiny opening. So let's hook these up first. So we'll get a bolt. The slips over the bolt. This goes in, the washer goes in place, of course, and it goes through. This is the power wire, and we'll do the same for the sensor wire. Okay, now these are not connected. The negative terminal of the battery never connects to anything else. In other words, it never connects across to the red. The first connection is always made up here. So let's go up there. We've got these two coming through, and we know that we're going to have a plate that goes across here that connects here to here. One of these is just going to have a bolt on, nut and bolt. But the other one, this is actually cell number 1. So this would be the first of the sensor wires. This goes to the negative down here, but this is cell number 1. So we need to put a terminal on here. So we'll put our washer on first, and then we'll get a small thing and put a terminal on it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of tightening on this. I'm just holding that with my fingers on the other side because I'm just not really cinching it down that much. Coming up here now, we have a black. Now the blacks never have any, except for the black negative, doesn't have anything tied to it. There's no sensor wires connected to it. So we're not going to put any leads on it. We're just going to put the through bolts in. Turn it over and come up here. Oh, we see that this is a red, and this red is going to have a sensor wire wired to it. But first, let's assemble the parallel plate that goes across like this. Okay, now we'll put our washers on. And now we're going to put a sensor wire lead, which is one of the thin ones, on here. We'll put a couple nuts and bolts. When you buy a set of battery blocks, I always include enough of these leads so that you can wire up your sensor wires. They're included in the price. You're going to get one positive lead, one negative terminal lead, and one sensor lead for every one of these reds, and an extra one for the black. Okay, now we've got, let's straighten this out a little bit. Now we've got a black one that's open up, but as we know, we don't put any attachments on the black one. So all we do is put some bolts through here. And coming up here, we see that we need to hook a parallel plate across, so let's do that first. And we're working again with a red terminal, so we need to put a sensor lead on it. First I'll put down my washers. Okay, we'll go ahead and tighten that up a little bit. Okay, there we go. Sometimes these washers don't quite settle in. Well, you can just use a screwdriver like that so that they don't overlap and make them sit down. Let me try the other side. Yeah, here's one too. Especially when they're tight like this on the smaller packs. Okay, so we're over here, and this is black, but as we know, black does not have any sensor leads hooked to it. The negative parts of these cells don't. So we'll just go ahead and put our through bolts through. And coming up over here, we see we've got a red and we need to make a connection across here, so we'll make that connection. And we'll put on our washers. And we can see that we're going to need to have a sensor wire here because this is red. So we go ahead and put one on and put on a couple nuts. And give it a little tightening. And a little bit of adjustment. The washers overlap. And there we go. Again, we're back here to the black. The black does not take any sensor wires. Coming up over here. Oop, I got a short bolt. They're both short. Let's get some long ones. Okay, there we go. And this is red, so this is going to take a sensor wire, and it needs to have the series connection made between these two. So let's put this down. Okay, put a couple washers on there. And we'll put the sensor wire on it because it's red. Sensor wire connector. I guess you know that, oops, this pattern just repeats itself no matter what size your battery is. Oops, that's not quite right. So I don't think I got this nut started right. The pattern just repeats itself no matter what, you know, how long your battery is. It's the same pattern. Okay, and now we've got a little bit of overlap, and I'll fix that. And here's our final couple bolts. This is black, so there is no sensor wire attached to it. Okay, and coming up here, this is the positive terminal of the battery. This is the N terminal. There should never be anything attached to either. See how the negative is not attached to any other one? The positive is not attached to any other one, and neither is the negative. However, there does need to be two terminals on this one. One is a big fat one, which holds the big power wire that comes off the battery, and the other is the small one that holds the sensor wire that goes to the BMS or the hobby charger. So let's go ahead and put our washers on. put our two terminals on. And we'll go ahead and put some nuts on it. We'll go ahead and give this a little bit of a tightening. And we'll take a look. Alright, there we go. Now what I like to do after I've done this is go through and label each of these terminals, okay? So I've already labeled, let me go back to the orientation I started with. Here's N for negative. This here is cell number 1. This is cell number 2. This is number 3. This is number 4. This is number 5. And this is 6, and it's the positive terminal of the battery. Okay, now we'll go on to attach the wiring. Let's go ahead and hook up the sensor wires. But first, let's start by checking out the voltages and be assuring that everything's been hooked up properly. So here's my voltmeter. Let's see, how can we see this better? And so let's check out the first cell. Of course, here's my negative terminal of the whole battery. It's down here, my left-hand side, right-hand side. Take a look at the voltage. 3.958, that's good. Number 2, 7.92, so we're seeing roughly a 4-volt increase each time. $11.89, the next one should be around 15. 15.85, the next one should be around 20. 19.81, and the next one should be around 24. 23.78. So this is hooked up correctly. Okay, let's check the labeling. Neutral. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's right because we have 6 of these battery blocks wired in series. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So everything looks good. Let's start by hooking up the power wires. I've wired up this short harness. So we'll strip the negative. This is the negative, and this is the large terminal that I was talking about, the one with a little bit bigger opening for the power wires. I'm just going to crimp these for the purposes of this video. Usually I would both crimp and solder them. That's, the belt and suspenders approach. Here's the positive. Let's hook this up to the positive end. Okay, so now we have a power wire. Let's check that out. Red should be positive and black should be negative. And sure enough, 23.78 volts. Perfect. Let's start with the sensor wires now. Here is just a regular, the JST XH connection that's so commonly used on these hobby batteries. Over here I have my hobby charger, but this could just as well be a BMS. And here's the plug that goes to my hobby charger. So I need to find out which end plugs into there, this end. So this is the end that I'm going to cut then and wire to the battery. Okay, because this end fits over here. Alright, so this end over here, the end opposite the red in this case, is the negative. And then if we look, we've got 6 wires left over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this goes to the negative terminal of the battery, and this goes to the positive. Positive 1, positive 2, positive 3, positive 4, positive 5, and positive 6. So let's start by, we'll cut these one by one and work our way down. So let's cut this. and strip it. It's got a little bit of the solder on it from the fitting. I'll cut the next one back a little bit further. There it is, and this is the negative terminal of the battery, so this is where the first wire goes. This will be the negative terminal for the hobby charger or the BMS. Okay, so that's in. And now we need to do cell number 1, which is right here. So coming over here to this lead, we just cut this one, so this one here is cell number 1. It's the next one in order. As I said, usually I would both crimp and solder these, but I don't want to make this video too long. So there's lead number 1. Now we got to go back over here and get number 2. And number 2 is this one, next one down the line. Okay, number 3 is the next red one up here. Here we are, number 3. Bringing this over and taking a look. Number 3 would be this one. And I'm going to trim this a little bit shorter. Oops, didn't quite get that one. Good thing to give it a bit of a tug. Okay, that's where the bit of solder comes in handy, so you know you've got it. Okay, let's go to the number 4. Number 4 is this one, and we should probably cut it right about here. Okay, over to number 5. Go. And finally, number 6, which is right over here. Alright, now let's take a look at this with the hobby charger. And so we'll plug in. Oops, that didn't get the positive wire in there good enough. That's why I say I like to solder them. Okay, there we go. Now let's hook up the hobby charger and see what we've got here. And the sensor cells are already hooked up. I'm at lithium ion. I'm going to go to charge, number of cells 6, enter. It's checking the battery. It says everything's good. And we're starting to charge, and it's showing actually that it's pretty well balanced. Let's tidy this up a little bit now. And there you have it. There she is. She's good to go, and she's charging up. So that's all there is to wiring sensor wires. As I said before, the pattern is the same whether you're wiring up a BMS or wiring up for a hobby charger. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.